All right, my friends, Boker Tov. Today's Daf Yomi is Chagigah Daf Chaf Beis, and we are grateful to our sponsors for today. We're grateful to Aviva and Mordechai Weissman for sponsoring today's Torah study in memory of their son, Philip Rodkin, on the occasion of his birthday. We're also grateful to Jill Sachs for sponsoring the whole week in memory of her father, Chaim Feivel, Ben Baruch Shimon, the Chayata, and also to our friend Gray for sponsoring the whole month of March in memory of her brother Bobby and her grandmother Grace Lubarsky Goldstein, and her mother Beverly Goldstein Espinosa. So we thank to all our sponsors which allow us to keep the flame of Torah going strong. So we are on the bottom of 22a, and where today's Daf Yomi is Chagigah Daf Chaf Beis, where the Gemara has told us that because of Ava, because we're concerned about arousing enmity between the Amei Haaretz and between the Chaverim, so for this reason we are going to make certain leniencies. That's what the Gemara is discussing. David, thank you for your help, my dear friend. So the Gemara had been discussing what's the reason why we do not immerse one utensil inside another. By kachim, we're not allowed to do it, but by truma we can. Gemara said that the reason is because the two suggested reasons were offered. One was by Rav Ilah and one was by Rava. Rav Ilah has said that because we're concerned that there's going to be a chatzitza, that the two utensils will be touching each other, and therefore the water won't get to every part of the utensil, and therefore it's not going to be a valid immersion. Whereas Rava says, no, the concern is you might come to immerse one utensil inside the other, and then the outside of the utensil will have a spout that's too small. The spout will be less than the shear of a tube, and since this spout will be less than the size of a tube, therefore, as a result of it, it's going to be considered like the water and the inside of the utensil is not connected to the water of the mikvah because the connecting pipe is too small, and therefore it's not considered like it immersed. And the Talmud said, well, what's the difference between these two cases? Is there a distinction of a practical case? And the Talmud says, yeah, if you immerse it in a large basket, then there's no concern that you're going to immerse it in a case where there's a spout that's too small. And if you did it in a basket, but therefore, according to Rav Ilah, you would be concerned about a chatzitza, but according to Rav, you wouldn't be concerned because there's no spout there. So the Gemara says, on that context, Gemara says, this dispute between Rav and Rav Ilah is actually the same dispute as the Machokas Tanaim. It's consistent with an earlier dispute. Tanaim, we learned in the Brisa the following. We learned in the Brisa the following. Salver Gargutani Shemilan Kalim. Let's say you have this basket that you filled with utensils, vitbilan, and then you immerse it in the mikvah. Vein lakodesh. Bein l'truma tahorim, whether it's for kachim or for truma, it's tahor, and the reason is because if you would adopt Rava's explanation that we're only concerned about a utensil with a spout, so there's no spout here, and therefore it's not only going to be good for truma, it's also good for kachim. Whereas Abba Shaul says l'truma, it's good avalol kodesh, but it's not good for kachim. What's the reasoning? Because this would adopt the logic of Rav Ilah, that the reason is we're concerned about a chatzitza, that the two utensils are touching, and therefore it's problematic regardless. It's going to be problematic regardless. So the Gemara says, okay, well, so you said you can't immerse for kachim, but you can immerse for truma based upon the logic of Rabbi Ilah or the logic of Rava, but it doesn't make any sense. Why are you drawing a distinction between kachim and truma? Gemara asks that question, Yachat truma nami. It shouldn't be, if you say it's not good for kachim either because of a chatzitza or because the spout is too small, it shouldn't be good for truma also. Mar says, well, man kamrina, who are we talking to? Who's asking us, is this a valid immersion? Chaverim, or a chaver is somebody who's very careful, meticulous about the laws of tumah and tahara, the laws of purity and impurity. Chaver made the yadi, they're going to know, and so they're going to know to be careful, and so therefore, but we can say that you can do it for truma, but not for kachim. Chaver made the yadi. They know that you need to have the tube to be larger. They know that the parts of the utensils can touch. So therefore, it's not going to be a problem. Well, if the chaverim are the ones doing it and they know not to do it wrong, well, for kachim also, let it be. Let them. Let's say that they can do it. Let a chaver do it for kachim. The Gemara says no. Chazilei amaretz. We're worried that for kachim, the amaretz is going to see him, and because the amaretz is going to see him, it's going to be a problem. Because when the amaretz sees him, he's going to see, oh, that's how he did it. And then he's going to go ahead. And then he's going to go ahead and immerse it in his utensil the same way that he saw the mire. Can I ask you a favor to please shut the door? I think the door is opened over there. Just shut it. Yeah, thank you, Maya. So what? So he says that. I thought this door is open. No, okay, fine. So he says, so the Amaretz will see Amaretz Azil and Matbil. So the Amaretz will see what he does, and then go ahead and immerse it. So the Gemara says, well, Truma Nami Chazilei. What won't the Amaretz see what he's doing, and then he'll immerse it for Truma? Chazilei Amaretz Azil Matbil. So the Gemara says, yeah, that's not going to be a problem because we're not going to accept the Truma. If the Amaretz wants to give us his Truma, the chaver is not going to accept it because he's going to say it's ritually impure. So Gemara says, well, Kodesh Nami going to Kalaminaya. So why? So let's maybe not accept his kachim, his karbanos, because we'll say that everything involved with it is ritually impure. Gemara says no. If we're not going to accept his sacrifices, Haviu Eva, that's going to cause hatred and enmity and a schism amongst the Jewish people, and that's a huge problem. And so therefore we accept it by kachim but not by truma. Well, Gemara says truma nami avileiva. He comes to give you a tithe. He's going to give you his offerings, and you're not going to accept it. That's also going to cause hatred. And then Gemara says no. He's not going to care. He's going to say, okay, you don't want this. Also, you have a kohen amar. So I'll give it to a kohen who I know who's not careful. But by kachim, there's only one temple, so that's only one place you could give it to. But who is this author who says that we have to be concerned about Eva? Who is this one who says that we have to be concerned about creating hatred amongst the Jewish people? Who is this authority who says that? Gemara says that this is the position of Rabbi Yossi. What did Rabbi Yossi say? Why do we accept the oil and the wine when they bring them for libations of all the chaverim the whole year? Why do we accept it? Because if we're not going to accept it from the Amaretz brings us his oil and his wine, you know what's going to happen? Everybody's going to go ahead and make their own sacrifices, their own offerings. Everybody's going to burn their own red heifers. It's going to be a big balagan amongst the Jewish people. It's going to cause a whole schism. So therefore, we have to bend our own laws a little bit and accept their oil and their wine as offerings, even though we're concerned that maybe it's not 100% ritually pure. And Amar Papa Kamame Kablina na Inda Sadusami Amar. Papa says we apply it not just to sacrifices, but even today. That's why we accept them for jury duty and witnesses. Why do we do it? Because even though we don't think that they're as meticulous as we are, but because because we're concerned about arousing enmity or hatred. So it's a very powerful idea. So the Gemara says,
also underlines the fact that a Kohen, even though ideally he should be a big Talmud Chacham and knowledgeable, the reality is that just because they're endowed with the Kedusha is not automatic that a Kohen has. It's something he has to earn, and it's something that needs to be rated at some level. Because at the end of the day, when the Kohen takes off his uniform, he's a civilian. Once he takes off, he's finished with his avoda. He cannot go out there and say, "I'm a Kohen, therefore, I can go on the HOV lane, even though I'm by myself."
Yes, exactly. That's why we see here that some of the Kohanim are Amei Haaretz. We see that explicitly here, Kohen Amei Haaretz.
And that's where a very famous dictum comes from. That Talmud Chacham Mamzer.
It's better than a Kohen.
In some ways, it's better than a Kohen.
That's a beautiful point. That's a beautiful point that Rameir is pointing out, that there is a Kohen Am Haaretz here, and the Torah scholars of Mamzer is even better than a Kohen Am Haaretz. So the Gemara says, so wait, we're going to allow the Amei Haaretz to immerse their utensils we're going to say it's not a problem by truma for us to immerse the utensils one inside the other, because even if the Amoritz sees it and he wants to give us his truma, we're not going to take it from him. So we're not concerned about the Amoritz seeing it. But we should be concerned that Amoritz will purify his utensils in this manner, and then he's going to lend us his utensil, and we're going to borrow it, and then we're using his utensil. That's no good. Why don't we have to be concerned that we're borrowing a utensil from the Amoritz? And we know that the Kohan or the Chaverim used to borrow utensils from the Amoritz. The Tanai, Kucheres Matzil al Kol. Beis Hillel says that the Kucheres is matzil alcohol. That, let's say we have the following scenario. Let's say you have a dead body on the bottom floor of a two-bedroom, two-story house, and there's a skylight in between. And the dead body would normally penetrate the whole house, and everything in the house would be what's called a primary source of tuma and avatuma from the dead body. But in this case, what you do is you take a pottery utensil and you stick it between the two places. You stick it in the skylight. So this pottery utensil stops the tumah from penetrating into the house. Kucheres matzil alcohol. That's what Beis Hillel says. Beis Shammai says eno matzil ela ochem ha'amashkem. Beis Shammai has a strange position. It says it stops the food items from becoming tamei, and it stops a pottery utensil in there from becoming tamei. But if there's other utensils or garments in there, they're going to be considered tamei. So Beis Hillel had said it saves everything. Beis Shammai says it only saves certain things. So the categories of things that Beis Shammai say it doesn't save, that it saves, are those things that can't be immersed because they can't be purified. How are you going to immerse food item? Once it's tamei, it's tamei. And a pottery utensil, once it's tamei, it cannot be purified. So Beis Shammai says those things that can go to the mikvah, we make them go to the mikvah. But those things that can't, we say are tahor. So Beis Hillel turns to Beis Shammai and he says, I don't understand. So why are you saying that these things? Why do you say that this is a problem? Because you're saying it's tamei from the amaret. So that utensil that's interrupting, you're saying is tamei. I don't understand your logic. And because you're basically saying that the utensil is not stopping the dead body from penetrating because it's a utensil of an amaretz, and so therefore it itself is tamei. And since it's tamei, it can't stop the tumah from penetrating. That's what Beit Shammai is saying? So Beis Hillel says, if it's tamei, then why do you say that the food items are tahor there? So if it's tamei, then everything should be tamei. If it's tahor, then everything should be tahor. Why do you say, well, the food items are okay, but everything else is tamei? So Beis Shammai says, yeah, when we're on the top of 22b, so Beis Shammai says, when we said that the food items are tahor, that's motiharnu. We only said it's tahor vis-a-vis the amaretz. He could eat it, but we're not going to eat it. Should we say his other garments and utensils in there are tahor? Well, for you and for me, for you and for him, meaning to say that we should use them. We're not going to use his utensils. But we see from here, bracket this is the question. Why don't we have to be concerned that the amaretz will see how we immerse our utensils for truma, and then we're going to borrow them from him. So before we go to answer that question, the Gemara is now going to first analyze this price and say we don't understand Beis Shammai's position. The Gemara tells us a powerful story about this. Rabbi Yeshua, Tanya, we learned from the price. It says Rabbi Yeshua, he says, Beis Shammai, I'm embarrassed that you would even give such a suggestion. According to your logic, a woman could be kneading her dough in her utensil that's not pottery, bareva, isha bareva tamei, and then the woman is tamei, and this bowl is tamei, and for 7 days out of the fact that it was in the same room as a dead body. But the dough is tahor. Where's your logic there? Or lugan moimash, you have a jug filled with wine, and that's the lugan is tamei, tumashiva, the jug is tamei, umashkin for 7 days. Umashkin tahor, whereas the liquid is completely tar. You don't make any sense. If they're all in the room, they should all have the same law. Why are you making two separate laws? So there was one student there from Beis Shammai, and he said, he raises his hand, he says, let me try and help Beis Shammai. Amar, so Rabbi Yeshua says to him, speak to him. Amar says to him, says, I'll explain to you. So he says, Amar more. Amar lo, kli tameh chotzitz or eno chotzitz. He says, well, let me ask you a question. This utensil is tameh, that's interrupting it, is if it would be tameh, would it be able to stop the dead bodies from penetrating or not? And he says, Amar eno chotzitz. Yeshua says it doesn't stop it because it's tameh. So he says, well, second question. He says, and the Amaretz, this person is not careful about laws of purity and impurity. Are his utensils good or bad? Are they tamei or tahar? They're tamei. So he says, okay, so that's the problem. The utensil is tamei, but I don't want to tell him that everything is tamei. If I'm going to say everything there is tamei, he's never going to ask you a question again. If you tell him everything in your house is treif, he's going to be done with you. You have to give him a little bit of space. So he's saying, okay, these things that can't be fixed, they're okay. But the things that can be fixed, you take them to the mikvah. Whoa, not only that, if you're going to tell him your stuff is all treif, it's all tamei, he's going to say to you, what are you talking about? I'm good, you're bad. It's going to make a huge fight. That's what Beis Shammai, the people who think Beis Shammai was strict. No, Beis Shammai was saying, we can't send away this guy forever. Give him a little bit of things to work on. Rabbi Yeshua immediately went and he lay down on the graveyard of Beis Shammai. And Amar, Naniti lachem atzamos. He said, basically, I was wrong to you, atzmos Beis Shammai. I owe it to you. Mas sumo shalchem. If these things which I don't understand are so beautiful, kach mefurashos. If that's how they're explained, kach mefurashos alachas kama v'kama. The clear things, how beautiful are they? Amru kol yamav hushku rishina v'netaniyu. So the rest of his life, Rabbi Yeshua, his teeth became black because he was fasting to such a degree because he felt so bad. But anyway, we see from here that the Amaretz would lend utensils to the Torah, to the Chaverim. So therefore, why do we immerse the Truma? Why don't we have to be worried? Why are we allowed to immerse it in one utensil inside the other? Why aren't we worried that they're going to borrow one utensil from another? So the Gemara says, "Katani mias l'chavelo." For you and for him, we're going to borrow the utensil. Alma shalina minayo. We see we borrow utensils from Amaretz. Gemara says, "No, kishalina minayo matbulina lahu." So he says, "No. When we borrow from them, we immediately immerse it." So if that will be the case, nahadru beisol Beis Shammai. So then why didn't Beis Hillel respond to Beis Shammai? Yeah, well, if we borrow them, we'll immerse it. He says, yeah, no, but that won't be okay because Tamei Mace, this case, it's becoming Tamei from a dead body. And Tamei from a dead body, Ba-za, Gimel V'zayin. If it's Tamei from a dead body, you need to sprinkle the ashes on it on day 3 and day 7, and then only then that will you immerse it. And that's why in the case of Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, he didn't say we're going to immerse it because nobody wants to lend their utensil out for 7 days. 1 day, fine. 2 days, not 7 days. So the Gemara says, so the Gemara says, well, why don't we just tell the Amaretz to immerse it and we'll believe him? He says he immersed it. Why don't we believe him? But don't we have a source that we do believe the Amaretz if he says why do we have to immerse the Amaretz's utensil? Why don't we believe him if he says he immersed it? Then we have a source that the Amaretz is believed to have immersed if he came in contact with a dead body. So Abai's answer is Lokasha, Abagufo, Abakalev. We believe him if he says he immersed himself. By the utensils, people don't care about it. People aren't careful about their utensils to make sure they're immersed. And so therefore, by his utensils, we don't believe him. That's what Abai says. We believe him about his body, but not about his utensils. Rava says, no. Rava says, I can even draw a distinction within the utensils. Rava says, even within the utensils, sometimes we believe him, sometimes we don't. And one is where he says, I never ever immersed one utensil inside another, then we'll believe him and take his utensils. But he says, yeah, I immersed it, but I never immersed it in the case where the spout was too small. We don't feel like he's going to have that level of granular knowledge to trust him. And the Gemara says, and the proof for this is Yeah, Amaretz is believed to say my fruit never had liquid on them at all, and therefore they are not capable of contracting tumah. But he's not believed to say, yeah, they got liquid on them, which means they would be capable of contracting tumah. But then I was very careful to watch them. No, there's certain times we believe him about certain general things, but not in the specifics. Mar says, do we believe him if he says he immersed his whole body in the water? Is that really the case? But we have a source where it says if somebody becomes tummy by being in contact with a dead body, they have to count to day 3. And then you sprinkle the mechat, that's the water of the ashes of the red heifer on him on day 3 and day 7. So if the chaver comes to you and says, "Look, it's day 3 since the dead body," we believe him right away. But if the amaretz comes, we say no. First, we want to watch it and make sure it's 3 days. We count 3 days from the time he comes before us. So therefore, we don't believe him. So Abai says, yeah, the reason why we're so strict upon him there is because we're so careful about him at the beginning to make him stand 3 days in front of us. Therefore, he called the sofa. Therefore, in the end, if he tells us he immersed, once he passed through that high threshold, then we could be lenient on him in the end. So, okay, so then the Gemara says, we're up to the next case in the Mishnah, where by kachim, if there's a utensil has different parts of the utensil which could be used for different areas, we believe that each utensil, that if it touches one part, the whole utensil is tamei. Whereas by truma, we say that each discrete part can be tamei and not the whole utensil. Gemara says that this refers to the achorayim, the back of the utensil, which was its own piece. Like think about a utensil which, if you turn it upside down, you could use it. The back of it also, and the toch on the inside of it. The mashkin. Let's say the back of the utensil became tamei from a liquid achorav tamei, and the back is tamei. But there are other parts of it, the inside, the handle, the different spouts, they're going to be tahor. Nitma tocha. But if the inside became tamei, kuo tamei, the whole part is tamei. And also the base at tzvita. That's also another case in the Mishnah that if we said that that's tamei. The base at tzvita, my base at tzvita. What is this base at tzvita? That if that part became tamei by truma, only that part is tamei, but not the rest of it. What is this base at tzvita? This is the place where you hold it to pass. That Boaz passed to Ruth the parched grain in the book of Ruth. Rabbi Asi Amar Rabbi Yochanan Makom shenekiye adas sovin. This is the place where the nekiye adas, the people who are very careful, very meticulous with how they were eating, the fine diners, they don't want to. There was a communal dip. They don't want to dip their food into the communal dip. That's disgusting to them. So they each have a little place on the side of their utensil to dip their stuff. That's where they would dip it. These are called the nekiye adas, the hoity-toities. So it says the Gemara, Tani Rabbi B'Kamed Rav Nachman Kol HaKelim Ein Lahem Acharayim Mitoch Echa Kachei HaMikdash Echa Kachei HaGvul. He says, no, by all of these utensils, we view them as one utensil. We don't consider them to have a back part where it's discrete, whether it's the sacred food of the temple and the sacred food of the borders. Well, what does that mean? I'm like, what are the sacred food of the borders? Truma, if you want to say it's truma, which is the tithe food that you give to the Kohen, Vatanan, Charayim, Tok Beit Satzvita with truma. No, but we say that there are discrete parts of the utensil for truma. So the Gemara says, well, maybe it's l'chulin shenasu al taras hakodesh kamas. Maybe it's for chulin that was done al taras hakodesh. And so, as we stated, that it's the chulin that you did it as though it was kachim. So that is its own discrete part. The Gemara says, oh, when he says this, adkor milsa, oh, you reminded me. There are 11 categories in the Mishnah, 11 discrete cases of the difference between kachim and truma. Sheish rishono is ben kodesh ben chulin. The first 6 are both applied to kachim and chulin that was done al taras hakodesh, which is like this case of these utensil with the back parts, that it applies that each is its own discrete part for kachim and also for chulin that was done al taras hakodesh. But the final 5, achronos lakodesh and wol chulin shenas al taras hakodesh. But not to the final 5 don't apply to chulin that was done al taras hakodesh. Do you want to say? Hold on.